Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of her warship, looking at the screens that showed space around them. Her fleet of 40 ships floated near the human colony called New Busan. It was a peaceful place where families lived and worked. Children went to school there. People had built homes and started lives far from Earth. But today, peace was ending. The sensors showed 300 alien ships arriving. They were big and powerful, belonging to the Galactic Council. The Council was made up of 15 different alien races who had been in space for thousands of years. They thought they owned the galaxy. "Commander, we're receiving a message," said her communications officer. Yuna watched as an alien face appeared on the main screen. It was Ambassador Velthar from the Kryn Empire. His skin was blue and his eyes were too large for what humans thought was normal. He looked at Yuna like she was a child who needed to be taught a lesson. "Human Commander," Velthar said slowly, as if speaking to someone stupid. "Your species has taken colonies and systems that belong to us by ancient right. We are the older civilization. We were here first. You must leave." Yuna kept her face calm, but inside she was angry. Humans had found empty systems. They had worked hard to build colonies on dead worlds. They had brought life to places that had been empty for millions of years. And now these aliens wanted to take it all away. "Ambassador," Yuna replied, "these worlds were empty when we arrived. We have families living here. We won't abandon them." Velthar made a sound like laughter, but it wasn't friendly. "You have no choice. Look at our fleet. Look at your tiny force. We give you 48 hours to evacuate everyone. If you refuse, we will remove you by force." The screen went dark. Yuna looked at her crew. They were scared but trying to be brave. They were young, most of them. They had joined Earth's space navy thinking they would explore and protect. Now they faced an enemy that outnumbered them 7-1. Far away on the orbital platform above New Busan, Captain Ji-hoon was watching the same alien fleet. His job was to protect the colony from space. He had weapons and shields, but nothing that could stop 300 warships. "Sir, the colonists are asking what's happening," said one of his officers. Ji-hoon closed his eyes for a moment. Below him, 50,000 people were living their normal lives. They didn't know that everything was about to change. He thought about the school near the main dome. His daughter had visited it last year and said she wanted to study there someday. "Tell them the truth," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Tell them Earth is negotiating. Tell them not to panic." But he knew the truth. The Galactic Council didn't negotiate. They demanded and took. Every species they had ever encountered had either joined them or been crushed. That's how they had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Back on Earth's moon, in a base called Luna Command, Admiral Day sat in a dark room full of screens and lights. She was old for a military officer, nearly 60, but her mind was sharp. She had been preparing for this day since she was a young captain. Around her sat the leaders of Earth's military. They all looked worried. On the screens, they could see reports coming in from all human colonies. The Galactic Council wasn't just threatening New Busan. They were surrounding every human settlement in space they think will surrender, said General Park. "Every species has surrendered to them before." "We're not every species," Admiral Day said. Her voice was hard like steel. "Open a channel to Dr. Hana. It's time." Across the moon base, in a secure laboratory buried deep underground, Dr. Hana received the message she had been waiting for. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she understood what was coming. For 10 years, she had been working on secret projects. Projects that the Galactic Council didn't know about. Projects that would change everything. She walked to her computer and entered her security codes. Red lights flashed as systems came online. These were systems that had been built in secret. Weapons that had been hidden. Plans that had been made in the dark. Authorization confirmed, the computer said in a flat voice. "Advanced Weapons Division is now active. All protocols are ready." Hana looked at the screen showing Earth from space. It was a beautiful blue planet, the home of humanity, but it was also a planet that had survived ice ages and disasters, a planet where species learned to adapt or die. Humans had learned to survive by being smarter, tougher, and more determined than anything that tried to kill them. The aliens thought humans were primitive. They looked at Earth's technology and saw it was newer than theirs. They thought newer meant weaker. They were wrong. Hana pressed a button. Across Earth, the Moon, Mars, and hidden bases throughout the solar system, weapons came online. Secret ships powered up their engines. Soldiers received their orders. Everything that had been prepared in darkness was now ready for light. Back on her ship, Commander Yuna received a coded message. It was from Admiral Day. The message was short. Do not surrender. Do not retreat. Hold your position. Help is coming. The trap is ready. Yuna smiled for the first time in hours. She looked at her crew and saw them sitting straighter, looking stronger. They had received the same message through their own channels. The communications officer spoke up. Commander, Ambassador Velthar is demanding our immediate withdrawal. He says we're being foolish. He says we're going to die for nothing. Tell him, Yuna said slowly, that we received his message. Tell him we're considering our options. Tell him we'll respond in 48 hours. She didn't mention that in 48 hours the Galactic Council would learn something new. They would learn that the quiet species from the small blue planet had been watching them, learning from them, preparing for them. They would learn that humans didn't fight fair. They fought to win, and they had been planning this war before the Council even knew Earth existed. In the darkness of space, the two fleets faced each other. The Council's ships were huge and confident. Earth's ships were smaller but ready. Between them floated New Busan, home to thousands of families who had no idea they were standing at the edge of a war that would change the galaxy forever. The countdown had begun. The 48 hours passed slowly. On Earth, people watched their screens and waited. Some prayed. Some cried. Everyone wondered if their government would save the colonies or let them fall. The Galactic Council felt certain of victory. They had won every conflict for 1,000 years. Why would this be different? Commander Yuna stood on her bridge as the deadline approached. Her orders were clear but seemed strange. Earth's government announced they would evacuate the colonies. They would surrender to the Council's demands. News reports showed crying families packing their belongings. Ships prepared to carry people away from their homes. All ships, Yuna said into her communicator. Begin retreat pattern Delta. Transmit surrender codes on all frequencies. Her fleet started moving away from New Busan. Slowly, carefully, they backed away from the colony. The Council's ships moved forward, eager to claim their prize. Ambassador Velthar sent a message that was almost friendly. You made the wise choice, humans. Perhaps your species can learn after all. But hundreds of light years away, in deep space behind Council territory, something else was happening. Captain Taeyang sat in the command chair of a ship called Whisper. It was small and dark, designed to hide. For 3 weeks, he and his crew had been floating in enemy space, invisible to Council sensors. He looked at his watch. It showed exactly 0400 hours. It's time, he said quietly. Begin Phase 1. His weapons officer pressed a button. Nothing seemed to happen. No explosions. No flashing lights. But across 4 different star systems, Council military bases suddenly went dark. Their power systems failed all at once. Emergency lights came on, but the main reactors were dead. At the Velcoris Nexus, the Council's biggest shipyard, workers stared in confusion as every computer screen went black. The massive orbital facilities that built warships stopped working. Defense satellites protecting Council homeworlds shut down without warning. On Earth's moon, Major Nari watched 17 different screens showing Council bases falling into chaos. She was young but brilliant with computers. For 10 years, she had been leading Earth's cyber warfare teams. They had done something very simple and very clever. They had hacked into Council systems before the Council even knew Earth existed. Phase 1 complete, she reported to Admiral Day. All primary targets are dark. They're trying to restart their systems, but they don't understand what we did to them. How long until they figure it out? Day asked. Days, maybe weeks. We changed their basic code at the deepest level. Every time they fix one problem, 3 more appear. It's beautiful. While the Council scrambled to restore power, Lieutenant Sora was already starting Phase 2. She commanded a special unit that controlled thousands of small drones. These drones were tiny, each one barely bigger than a human hand. The Council's sensors couldn't detect them. They thought the drones were just space dust. But these drones had weapons. Small weapons, but precise. Sora gave the order and the drones came alive. They flew through space toward Council military targets. Communication arrays, supply depots, fuel stations. The drones moved like a swarm of insects, too many to track, too small to stop. Targets locked, Sora said calmly. Beginning surgical strikes. Across Council space, small explosions began. Nothing huge. Nothing dramatic. Just critical systems being destroyed one by one. A fuel line here. A sensor array there. Each loss was minor. Together, they were crippling. At New Busan, the Council's fleet commander watched in growing confusion as reports flooded in. Systems were failing across his entire territory. He couldn't understand it. The humans were retreating. They had surrendered. So why were his bases losing power? Why were his supply stations exploding? Commander Yuna's fleet was still backing away, still transmitting surrender codes. But she was smiling now. The Council commander didn't notice that her ships were moving in a very specific pattern, a pattern that put them in perfect position for what came next. "Commander," her tactical officer said, "all ships report ready. We're in position." "Good," Yuna replied. "End the charade. All ships weapons free. Show them what Earth really built." Her 40 ships stopped retreating. New panels opened on their hulls, revealing weapons the Council had never seen before. These weren't the simple lasers and missiles the Council expected. These were weapons designed by Dr. Hana and her team. Weapons based on human creativity and human desperation. The Council fleet barely had time to react. Yuna's ships fired, but instead of attacking the Council fleet directly, they fired at the space around them. Strange devices shot out and activated. Suddenly, the Council ships couldn't move. Their faster-than-light engines refused to work. "What's happening?" the Council commander shouted. "Why can't we jump to light speed?" His science officer stared at the readings. "They're doing something to space itself. They're creating fields that prevent FTL travel. I've never seen this technology before." Captain Ji-hoon watched from his orbital platform as the trap closed. The Council fleet was stuck. They couldn't escape. They couldn't call for help because their communications were being jammed. And now Earth's ships were moving forward, not in retreat but in attack. Admiral Day sat in Luna Command and allowed herself a small smile. Everything was going according to plan, a plan that had taken 10 years to prepare. While the Council thought Earth was stumbling around in space like a confused child, humans had been studying them, learning their weaknesses, preparing for war. Back on Dr. Hannah's screens, data flowed in from across the galaxy. Every secret weapon was working. Every hidden system was online. The Council thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were wrong. "Admiral," Hana reported, "all Phase 2 objectives are complete. Council military infrastructure is at 20% efficiency and dropping. Their fleets are isolated. Their supplies are disrupted, and they still don't understand how we did it." Day nodded. "Good. Open a channel to the Galactic Council. Let's give them new terms." On the Council's main station, the 15 leaders gathered in emergency session. They were confused and frightened. In just a few hours, their perfect military machine had fallen apart. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy to control. A message came through from Earth. It was Admiral Day's face on the screen. She looked calm and cold. "Galactic Council," she said slowly. "You gave us 48 hours to evacuate our colonies. We're giving you 24 hours to evacuate your forces from all human territory. If you refuse, we won't just target your bases. We'll target your supply lines, your food, your fuel, your water. We'll cut off every fleet you have in space and watch them die slowly." Ambassador Velthar stood up, his face dark with anger. "You cannot threaten us. We have 300 ships at New Busan alone." "You had 300 ships," Commander Yuna's voice cut in. "But now they can't leave. They can't call home, and they can't see the weapons we're aiming at them. You have 24 hours. Choose wisely." The message ended. The Council sat in stunned silence. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had hit them first. Someone had planned ahead. Someone had refused to be afraid. And that someone was the species they had called primitive. The Galactic Council refused Earth's ultimatum. High Counselor Thek stood before the assembled leaders and declared that no primitive species would dictate terms to them. They would restore their systems, bring in more ships, and crush humanity completely. They would teach Earth what real power looked like. "We are 15 civilizations with thousands of years of experience," Thex announced. "These humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. They got lucky with their first strike. But luck runs out. Numbers and experience always win." The other council members agreed. They sent orders to their home fleets. Bring more ships, bring more weapons, show these humans their place in the galaxy. But they didn't know what was coming next. On Earth's moon, Admiral Day received the Council's refusal. She had expected it. Pride was a powerful thing, especially for species that had always won. She looked at her officers gathered around the command table. They chose war, she said simply. Colonel Minji, activate Scorched Stars protocol. Colonel Minji was a quiet woman who rarely smiled. She had spent her career studying logistics, the boring work of moving supplies and fuel. But she understood something the Council didn't. Armies didn't fight on courage alone. They needed food, fuel, ammunition, and parts. Cut off those supplies and the strongest army became helpless. Protocol activated, Minji said. All hunter teams are deploying now. Across 6 sectors of space, small Earthships powered up and began moving. They weren't attacking Council warships. They were hunting something more important, supply convoys. The Council moved their military supplies on huge automated ships. These convoys traveled regular routes bringing fuel and ammunition to Council fleets. The routes were supposed to be secret, but Major Nari's cyber teams had been inside Council computers for years. They knew every route, every schedule, every cargo manifest. The first convoy died without warning. One moment it was traveling peacefully through empty space. The next moment, Earthships appeared and destroyed it completely. Fuel containers exploded. Food shipments scattered into space. The automated cargo ships had no weapons and no chance. Convoy 7 Delta destroyed, reported one of Minji's captains. Moving to next target. By the end of the first day, 12 convoys were gone. The Council fleet suddenly found themselves running low on supplies. Ships that needed fuel couldn't get it. Ammunition was running out. Food supplies were dropping. Captain Hyun led a strike team to a massive supply depot at Torvus Prime. The depot was huge, a small moon covered in warehouses and fuel tanks. It held enough supplies to keep Council operations running for 6 months. The Council had guards there, but they expected enemies to arrive in big warships with warnings. Hyun came in fast and quiet with 20 small ships. They used the moon's own gravity to hide their approach. When the guards finally detected them, it was too late. All ships target the fuel reserves, Hyun ordered. Maximum damage, minimum time. We're in and out in 3 minutes. The strike was brutal and efficient. Earth's weapons hit the fuel storage tanks. The explosions were enormous, lighting up space like a second sun. Hyun's ships were already leaving before the debris stopped falling. 6 months of supplies gone in 3 minutes. But Colonel Minji wasn't finished. Dr. Hana had given her a new weapon to use. It was called Skip-Gate Denial Technology. When the devices were activated, they made faster-than-light travel impossible in a large area of space. Deploy the denial field generators, Minji ordered. Surround every Council fleet in human territory. Earthships moved to new positions and activated the devices. Suddenly, Council forces scattered across dozens of systems found themselves trapped. They couldn't jump to light speed. They couldn't regroup. They couldn't help each other. Each fleet was alone. At the Council's main headquarters, panic was setting in. Reports flooded in from commanders across the galaxy. They were running out of supplies. They couldn't move. They couldn't communicate reliably. And humans kept appearing out of nowhere to attack their weakest points. How are they doing this? Demanded Counselor Velthar. We have better technology. We have more ships. Why are we losing? An old Council military historian tried to explain. They're not fighting the way civilized species fight. We have rules. We have honor. We target military ships and avoid civilian casualties. We follow protocols. But humans, they're targeting everything that keeps our military working. It's total war. Total war? Another Council member asked, confused. Complete war, the historian said grimly. They don't want to defeat our fleets in glorious battle. They want to destroy our ability to fight at all. They're attacking our logistics, our supplies, our communications. They're making it impossible for us to wage war, even if we have ships and soldiers. While the Council tried to understand what was happening, Engineer Junho was revealing another surprise. For 2 years, he had been installing mining equipment in asteroid fields throughout space. The Council had noticed, but didn't care. Mining was boring and peaceful. It wasn't a threat, except the equipment wasn't really for mining. All platforms ready, Junho reported to Admiral Day. We have coverage on 17 Council military targets. Show them what we built, Day said. The mining platforms opened up. Inside were not mining drills but weapons. Huge railguns designed to launch tungsten rods at incredibly high speeds. The rods were simple metal, but when launched at near light speed they became devastating weapons. The rods struck Council military bases without warning. No energy signature to detect, no time to raise shields, just pure kinetic energy smashing through everything. A Council command center on Vexar Station simply ceased to exist, replaced by a crater half a mile wide. Commander Yuna's fleet, now reinforced by Earth's reserve forces, moved through Council territory like ghosts. They didn't seek honorable combat. They didn't challenge enemy fleets to battle. They identified where Council officers were located and targeted them specifically. They destroyed command ships before they could coordinate defenses. They jammed communications so Council forces couldn't work together. Captain Ji-hoon took his orbital platform and moved it to a new colony under threat. When Council ships arrived expecting an easy victory, they found themselves fighting a mobile fortress that appeared out of nowhere. Earth forces were everywhere and nowhere, striking and vanishing before the Council could respond. The war the Council expected was supposed to be grand and civilized. Fleet against fleet in open space, honor and glory and clear victories. But humans didn't give them that war. Instead, every Council move was met with something unexpected. Every supply line was cut. Every communication was intercepted. Every weakness was exploited. 2 weeks after Earth's counterattack began, the Council reviewed their losses. They had lost more military assets than in 3 centuries of previous conflicts. Not just ships, but infrastructure, supply capacity, communications networks, trained officers. And they still didn't know where all of Earth's forces were. How many ships did humanity really have? How many hidden bases? How many secret weapons? The answer scared them more than the attacks. They didn't know. This species they had dismissed as primitive had been preparing in secret for years. Everything Earth built was designed with one purpose: survival against superior enemies. High Counselor Thex looked at the damage reports and felt something the Council hadn't experienced in 1,000 years. Fear. Real fear. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were dismantling the Council's power piece by piece. "What do we do?" one Council member asked quietly. Nobody had an answer. For the first time, the mighty Galactic Council faced an enemy they didn't understand and couldn't predict. An enemy that refused to follow the rules. An enemy that fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. An enemy called humanity. Desperation makes even the wise do foolish things. The Galactic Council, watching their power crumble, decided on one final gamble. If they couldn't defeat Earth's scattered fleets, they would strike at the source. They would attack Earth itself. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," High Counselor Thex ordered. 200 of our finest ships. We'll jump directly to their home system and force them to surrender. Once we threaten their homeworld, they'll have no choice but to stop. Admiral Thorin was chosen to lead the attack. He was old and experienced, a veteran of 50 campaigns. He gathered his fleet from across Council space, pulling ships from defensive positions. It left the Council vulnerable, but Thorin believed it was worth the risk. "Intelligence reports say Earth's main fleet is scattered, protecting their colonies," Thorin told his officers. "The path to their home system is clear. We jump in, make our demands, and they surrender. Simple." His fleet prepared to jump. 200 warships, each one bigger and more powerful than anything Earth had. It was the largest military force assembled in centuries. Surely no primitive species could stand against this. But Captain Taeyang's reconnaissance ships had been watching. His small, invisible vessels tracked every Council ship movement. The moment Thorin's fleet began moving toward Seoul, Taeyang sent the warning. "Admiral," he transmitted to Luna Command. "They're coming home. 200 ships. Arrival in 4 hours." Admiral Day received the message and smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Perfect. They're doing exactly what we hoped. Alert all units. Operation Homecoming is active." Far across Earth's solar system, hidden weapons came online. Installations that looked like old satellites powered up. Asteroids that seemed natural revealed themselves to be camouflaged warships. Even the debris floating around Mars began moving with purpose. Lieutenant, Ji-won sat in the command chair of a battlecruiser called Righteous Fury. Her ship had been hiding inside a hollowed-out asteroid for 3 months, waiting. Now it was time to move. Around her, 50 other warships emerged from hiding. They had been there all along, invisible to anyone scanning the system casually. "All ships report ready," Ji-won said calmly. "The trap is set. Now we wait for our guests to arrive." When Admiral Thorin's fleet emerged from lightspeed at the edge of the Sol system, they expected to see Earth defended by a small guard force, maybe 20 ships, maybe 30 at most. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. "Sir," Thorin's sensor officer shouted. "I'm reading hundreds of contacts." "They're everywhere." It was true. From every direction, Earth forces appeared. Ships emerged from behind asteroids. Satellites revealed themselves as weapon platforms. Even pieces of space junk suddenly activated and pointed weapons at the Council fleet. The entire solar system was a fortress. Humanity had turned their home into the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. Every rock, every satellite, every piece of debris was either a weapon or a sensor, and all of them were aimed at the Council fleet. Lieutenant Ji-won broadcast on all frequencies. Her voice was calm and cold. "Welcome to Sol system. You're not leaving." Thorin stared at his screens in disbelief. How had humans built all of this? Where had they hidden such forces? His intelligence had been completely wrong. "All ships, defensive formation," he ordered. "Prepare for..." The Earth forces attacked before he could finish. But they didn't attack blindly. Commander Yuna's forces had studied Council fleet tactics for years. They knew how Council ships moved, how they protected each other, how they communicated, and they had prepared for all of it. Earth ships used the solar system's natural gravity to their advantage. They pushed Council ships toward the sun, making them fight against gravity itself. They used Jupiter's massive pull to slingshot around at high speeds. They hid behind Earth's moon and ambushed Council ships as they tried to regroup. Captain Ji-hoon's orbital platforms, now mobile and repositioned throughout the system, fired on Council ships from unexpected angles. His weapons were designed specifically to penetrate Council shields. Years of studying their technology had paid off. Major Nari's cyber warfare teams went to work. They didn't just jam communications. They hacked into Council ships during the battle. Suddenly, Council vessels started getting false sensor readings. They saw friendly ships as enemies. Their weapons targeted their own fleet. Navigation systems showed them going one direction while they actually went another. "My ship is attacking our own cruiser," one Council captain screamed into the radio. "I can't stop it. My sensors show we're near Earth, but we're actually near Mars." Another reported in panic. Chaos spread through the Council fleet. They couldn't trust their own systems. They couldn't coordinate. Ships broke formation trying to avoid friendly fire. Some tried to retreat, but their navigation sent them deeper into the trap. Admiral Thorin's flagship, a massive vessel called Eternal Pride, tried to rally the fleet. It was the biggest ship in the Council Navy, protected by the strongest shields. But Captain Ji-hoon had been waiting for it. "Target the flagship," Ji-hoon ordered. "Missiles armed with our special gift from Dr. Hana." The missiles launched. They were small but carried something new. When they hit Eternal Pride's shields, they didn't try to break through with force. Instead, they released a pulse that made the shields collapse on themselves. Thorin's perfect protection vanished in seconds. "Shields down," his defensive officer shouted. "I don't understand how..." The second wave of missiles hit bare hull. Eternal Pride shook as explosions tore through its decks. Thorin grabbed his chair to stay standing. Around him, control panels sparked and went dark. "Abandon the attack," Thorin shouted. "All ships retreat." "Get us out of here!" But Commander Yuna had planned for that too. The skipgate denial fields were active around the entire battle area. Council ships couldn't jump to light speed. They would have to fly out at normal speeds, fighting all the way. "Don't let them regroup," Yuna ordered her fleet. "Pick off the stragglers. Make them pay for every mile they run." The battle lasted 14 hours. It was brutal and one-sided. Council ships tried to fight back, but they were in enemy territory, surrounded by forces that knew every trick. Earth vessels appeared out of nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the Council could respond. Colonel Minji's supply chain attacks proved their worth. Many Council ships ran out of ammunition halfway through the battle. Others had fuel problems. Some had been pushed so hard getting to Seoul that their engines were already damaged when they arrived. Engineer Junho's hidden platforms fired tungsten rods throughout the battle. Each rod was targeted with perfect precision. They hit engine sections, weapon arrays, command decks. The Council couldn't see where the attacks were coming from until it was too late. When the battle finally ended, Admiral Thoran counted his losses. Of 200 ships that had entered Sol, only 43 were still capable of jumping to lightspeed. The rest were destroyed or so damaged they had to be abandoned. Thousands of Council soldiers were dead. The Eternal Pride was a floating wreck, but the worst part wasn't the losses. It was the realization. Earth had never sent its full strength to defend the colonies. They had kept their best forces, their newest weapons, their most powerful ships at home. Waiting, planning. The Council had walked into a trap. As the surviving Council ships limped away, Colonel Minji's hunter teams pursued them. They didn't let them escape peacefully. Ships that fell behind were destroyed. Wounded vessels were finished off. The message was clear and terrifying. Attack Earth and you don't get to retreat with dignity. You run and you're hunted all the way home. Lieutenant Jiwan watched the last Council ships jump to lightspeed, running for their lives. Admiral Day, she reported. Enemy fleet is routed. Sol system is secure. Should we pursue into Council space? Negative, Day replied. Let them go home. Let them tell their story. Let every Council species know what happens when you threaten humanity's home. On the Council's neutral station, news of the disaster spread quickly. The Grand Fleet, their strongest force, had been destroyed. Not in a fair battle. Not in an honorable defeat. They had been slaughtered like animals in a trap. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had been the strongest power in the galaxy. They had enforced peace through superior force. They had made the rules because no one could challenge them. Now they knew fear. Real fear. The humans had shown them what desperate species could do when survival was at stake, and the Council understood that this war was already lost. The Galactic Council called an emergency session at their neutral station, Zenith Prime. It floated in empty space between territories, a symbol of Council power and wisdom. The 15-member species gathered to discuss what to do about the human problem. They expected to debate, to plan a counterattack, to find some way to restore their honor and power. They expected humanity to send diplomats to negotiate peace terms like civilized species did. Instead, Admiral Day arrived with 50 warships and surrounded the station. Inside the Council chambers, alarms blared. Guards rushed to defensive positions. High Counselor Thek stood at the central podium, his face showing anger and fear. This is outrageous, he declared. Zenith Prime is neutral ground. They cannot bring weapons here. It violates every treaty. Ambassador Velthar looked at the screen showing Earthships in formation around the station. I don't think they care about our treaties anymore. A message came through. It was short. Admiral Day requests permission to address the Council. She's docking in 5 minutes, whether you agree or not. The Council had no choice. They watched as Earth soldiers secured the docking bay. Then Admiral Day walked in, flanked by Commander Yuna and Captain Jihoon. They wore combat uniforms, not diplomatic robes. They carried weapons openly. This was not a peace negotiation. This was a surrender demand. Day walked to the center of the chamber and looked at the 15 Council members. She didn't bow. She didn't show respect. She just stared at them until they fell silent. We're here to discuss terms, Day said simply. But let's be clear. These aren't negotiation terms. These are the conditions for ending this war. You can accept them, or we can continue fighting. Your choice. Thex tried to sound authoritative. You cannot dictate to us. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 15 civilizations. You represented 15 civilizations. Commander Yuna corrected him. Now you're 15 species that lost a war to one. Things change. Dr. Hana appeared on a holographic screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Behind her, data scrolled past showing maps and coordinates. Lots of coordinates, counselors, Hana said politely. I want to show you something. For the past 18 months, Earth's intelligence services have mapped your territories. All of them. We know where your homeworlds are, where your populations live, where your critical infrastructure is located, where your food is grown, where your water is stored, where your children go to school. The Council members looked at each other nervously. Hana continued. We currently have kinetic bombardment platforms in orbit of every Council homeworld. They've been there for months, disguised as commercial satellites and research probes. You never noticed them. Each platform can destroy a major city in seconds. and we have enough platforms to target every significant population center in council space. She let that sink in. The chamber was completely silent. We don't want to use them, Hana said, but we can. Right now, within minutes of giving the order, we could devastate your civilizations, not defeat them. Devastate them. Do you understand the difference? This is terrorism, whispered one council member. This is holding innocent civilians hostage. No, Admiral Day said coldly. This is showing you the same threat you showed us. You brought 300 ships to a peaceful human colony and threatened to destroy it. You threatened our families, our children. You started this war. We're just finishing it. Captain Ji-hoon stepped forward with a data pad. Here are Earth's terms. First, the Council will formally recognize Earth's sovereignty over all human-settled worlds. No challenges, no disputes, no future claims. These colonies are ours permanently. Thex started to object, but Ji-hoon continued without pausing. Second, the Council will pay reparations for damages to New Busan and other colonies attacked during this conflict. The amount is already calculated. It's not negotiable. We don't have those resources, Veltar protested. Then find them, Commander Yuna said. Sell things. Raise taxes. Not our problem, Ji-hoon continued. Third, the Council will reduce military forces by 60%. Your fleets are too large and too aggressive. You'll maintain defensive forces only. Any offensive weapons development will be monitored by Earth inspectors. You can't demand that. Thex shouted, his composure breaking. That leaves us vulnerable. To who? Yuna asked. The only species that defeated you is us. And we're not planning to invade anyone. We just want to be left alone, unless you're worried about other species seeing you weakened and deciding to rebel. The silence that followed told everyone she had hit a nerve. The Council had many subject species who obeyed out of fear. If the Council's military was reduced, some of those species might seek independence. Fourth, Ji-hoon continued, Earth receives a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights and veto power. Any decision affecting human interest requires our approval. That's unprecedented, another council member protested. We've never given a new species such power. Then it's time for precedent, Admiral Day said. You wanted us to learn our place in the galaxy. We learned. Our place is as your equals. Actually, given that we won and you lost, maybe we're a bit more than equal. Dr. Hana spoke up again from her screen. These terms are final. You have 12 hours to accept. If you refuse, we'll keep fighting. And I promise you, we have weapons you haven't seen yet. Things that make the last 3 weeks look gentle. We really don't want to use them. But we will. The Kryn ambassador Velthar stood slowly. He looked older than before, tired and defeated. I have a question for you, Admiral. How did your species do this? How did you defeat us so completely? We have thousands of years of advancement. Our technology is superior. Our forces outnumbered yours. How? Engineer Junho answered this time. Because you stopped being afraid. You've been the strongest for so long that you forgot what weakness feels like. You forgot what desperation teaches you. Humans have only been in space for 2 centuries. Every single day we knew we were surrounded by species that could destroy us. Every ship we built was designed to fight enemies stronger than us. Every strategy we created assumed we'd be outnumbered and outgunned. Lieutenant Sora added her thoughts. You spent 1,000 years being comfortable. We spent 200 years being terrified. Fear makes you careful. Fear makes you plan. Fear makes you prepare for the worst possible situation, and then prepare for worse beyond that. You thought we were primitive, Commander Yuna said, but we were learning. We watched you. We studied you. We infiltrated your systems before you even knew we existed. While you saw us as children playing with spaceships, we were building weapons in secret, planning for the war we knew would eventually come. Every species you ever conquered gave up easily, Admiral Day said. They surrendered rather than fight, because fighting seemed hopeless. But humans don't work that way. We've survived ice ages. We've survived plagues. We've survived wars that nearly destroyed our own planet. We learned something from all that survival. Never give up, never surrender, and when someone threatens your home, you hit them so hard they never threaten you again. The council sat in stunned silence. Everything about their worldview had been shattered. They weren't the wise elder species guiding the galaxy. They were just the species that had been lucky enough to be strong when everyone else was weak. And now someone stronger had appeared. High Counselor Thex looked at his fellow council members. He saw defeat in their eyes, fear. They had no choice. "We accept your terms," he said quietly. "All of them." Admiral Day nodded. "Smart choice. We'll send the formal documents within the hour. Sign them and this war is over. Refuse or break the agreement and we'll show you what total war really looks like." 6 months later, the galaxy was different. The Galactic Council still existed, but everyone knew the real power had shifted. Earth's embassy station stood where Zenith Prime once floated. Human ships patrolled freely through space that was once restricted. Other species watched and learned. 3 minor species that had been oppressed by the Council formally requested Earth's protection. They wanted what humanity had: the strength to say no to bullies, the courage to fight when threatened, the determination to win at any cost. Admiral Day stood in the observation deck of the new embassy, looking at the stars. Major Nari joined her with status reports. All colonies were secure. Trade agreements were being signed. Earth's economy was growing. Military readiness remained at high alert, but no threats were detected. "We did it," Nari said quietly. "We won. We survived," Day corrected. "We proved we couldn't be pushed around. Now we need to prove we can be trusted with this power." Commander Yuna arrived with her own news. "Intelligence reports the Council is forming secret committees. They're studying everything we did, trying to understand our tactics. They want to know how we beat them." Dr. Hana walked in, smiling. "Let them study. By the time they understand what we did in this war, we'll have moved on to technologies they can't even imagine. That's the human advantage. We never stop learning, never stop improving, never stop preparing for the next threat." Captain Taeyang entered the observation deck with a concerned look. "Admiral, I have a question. What happens when they come for revenge? They'll rebuild their forces. They'll study our methods. Eventually, they'll try again.